Okay, but I am again discussing this topic. Okay, but we are discussing with causes of biodiversity losses. Okay, and that day I have explained, but in a very hurry manner. So I am taking this topic again. The causes of biodiversity. So what are the various causes that are responsible for loss of biodiversity in a region? ठीक है, that I am going to explain you. तो यहाँ पे उसने आपको ये बताया हुआ है कि what we observe that there is an accelerated rate of species extinction. ठीक है, what is the reason behind that? So the reason behind that is human interference. ठीक है, तो before the human enter into the episode, there is also so many cases of extinction, but वो कहते हैं कि speed of extinction of species is not as fast when the humans they have entered. ठीक है, तो here he has discussed 4 major causes of biodiversity losses, and first one is habitat loss and fragmentation. ठीक है, habitat loss and fragmentation, as the name itself indicate, is sometimes when there is a loss of habitat for some species, whether it may be the plant species or the animal species, ठीक है, what happen, तो कहते हैं कि इसमें हम ये कह सकते हैं कि अगर किसी भी स्पीशीज जो है उसका हैबिटेट लॉस हो जाता है, तो देयर इज अ critical situation that is happening for that species. So here, in order to support this statement, he has given the example of rainforest, that is the tropical rainforest, and he is talking about the Amazon rainforest. So what is said that the Amazon rainforest, they are covering how much part of the earth surface? So it is covering 14% of the earth land surface. And nowadays, due to human interference, the Amazon rainforest, they are destroyed at a very alarming rate. So once they are occupying 14% of the Earth's land area, but nowadays, due to human interference, what happened? The Amazon rainforest, they are left only by 6%. तो एक टाइम पे 14% वो अर्थ का लैंड सरफेस जो है ऑक्यूपाई करते थे, पर ह्यूमन इंटरफेरेंस और डिस्ट्रक्शन की वजह से अब उनका जो रेन फॉरेस्ट है उनका कवर कितना रह गया है? ओनली 6% आर देयर. ठीक है, दे आर डिस्ट्रॉइंग एट अ वेरी फास्ट रेट. तो व्हाट इज द रीजन बिहाइंड दैट? तो ही हैज रिटन that the destruction of the Amazon rainforest, they are done by humans because of the 2 reasons. One is they are doing the cultivation of soya beans over there. In order to do the cultivation of soya beans, they are clearing the forest, and then they convert that forest land into an agricultural land and do the cultivation of the soya beans, which are the protein rich crops. And second one is they are also converting the forest areas into grasslands. ठीक है, फॉरेस्ट के जो एरियाज हैं उनको ग्रासलैंड में कन्वर्ट कर रहे हैं. तो व्हाई दे आर डूइंग दिस? व्हाई दे आर कन्वर्टिंग द फॉरेस्ट एरियाज इनटू ग्रासलैंड? in order to raise the beef cattle. ठीक है, beef cattle means they proliferate the cattle species so that these animals can be used for obtaining meat in future. So because of this, because of cultivation of soya beans and because of animals which are little prepared as the beef cattle, these forest lands, they are covered into grasslands and agricultural lands. So what is the thing that is related with species when their habitats they get degraded? ठीक है, जब उनके habitats जो है वो degrade हो जाते हैं तो most of the species they becomes threatened. Okay, but so when large habitats, because the species they are enjoying, they are roaming over the large habitats, and when their large habitats they are broken into smaller fragments because of some human activities, then some of the species they are able to migrate from that habitats to some other places, and where behavioral changes occurs in those species. But there are some species which are not liking to move to another places. ठीक है, वो species क्या करती है? वो उसी एरिया के अंदर बनी रहती है, and because they have now habitats in the form of small fragments, they have limited territories for their movement, such as some mammal species are there, some bird species are there, so they are badly affected. ठीक है, अगर तो वो माइग्रेट कर जाती है किसी नए एरिया में तब भी उनके ऊपर उसका बैड इफेक्ट होता है, पर अगर वो अपने ही हैबिटेट में बनी रहती हैं जो अब फ्रैगमेंट्स की फॉर्म ले चुका है, देन ऑल्सो देयर इज अ डिक्लाइन इन द पॉपुलेशन ऑफ दोज स्पीशीज। तो हैबिटेट लॉस एंड हैबिटेट फ्रैगमेंटेशन का मतलब यही है कि ह्यूमन इंटरफेरेंस की वजह से या तो लार्ज जो हैबिटेट्स हैं उनको स्मॉल टेरिटरीज में कन्वर्ट कर दिया गया है, जिससे स्पीशीज जो है उनमें बिहेवियरल चेंजेस हुई हैं, दे आर नो मोर इंटरेस्टेड इन any task of reproduction, and reproductive isolation are also there. Those species who are living at one area of the habitat, they are not interacting with other species that are found at the other area of the, or you can say other territory of the habitat. So in this way there is a behavioral changes among the species, they are not reproducing among each other, and as a result what happened, the extinction of the species it takes place. ओके बेटे, तो इस तरह से उनका पॉपुलेशन जो है वो डिक्लाइन होती जाती है। उसके बाद देखिए सेकंड पॉइंट में ओवर एक्सप्लॉयटेशन में उसने ये बताया है कि ह्यूमन इज ओवर एक्सप्लॉइटिंग अवर नेचुरल रिसोर्सेज बिकॉज ऑफ हिज ग्रीड। सो बिफोर इंडिपेंडेंस, ठीक है, इफ वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट इंडिया, द पॉपुलेशन इज लेस, बट आफ्टर इंडिपेंडेंस देयर इज अ alarming rate of rise in the population. तो जैसे ही हमारी पॉपुलेशन बढ़ती है, the demands on nature it also goes on increasing. ठीक है, तो वी आर डिपेंडेंट ऑन नेचर फॉर सो मेनी थिंग्स लाइक फूड, शेल्टर, ठीक है, ऑल ऑफ दीज आर अवर ग्रीड. सो इन ऑर्डर टू सेटिस्फाई अवर ग्रीड व्हाट वी आर डूइंग द ओवर एक्सप्लॉइटेशन ऑफ अवर natural resources. But what is the special thing? Our natural resources, they are limited in number, their number is not increasing, but our greeds, our demands, they keep on increasing. So what happened? We are over exploiting our natural resources. Okay, bete? So because of this, many species in the last 500 years they become extinct because of human greed. Okay, some of the names are mentioned here, such as the Steller sea cow in Russia, passenger pigeon, it is the species that get extinct, and this only happens because of over exploitation that was done by humans. Okay, bete? Besides these, many of the marine fishes, they are also over harvested, and because of this most of the species of these marine fishes they now become the endangered species. Okay, because humans they are harvesting more and more of these species for their commercial importance, and because of this now these species that comes under the category of endangered species. All right, and third point is alien species invasion. So alien species mean those species that are not related with that particular area. The species which enters into an area from some outside places. They are the foreign species which are not the native species of an area. So when such alien species they are introduced, whether intentionally or unintentionally, for any of the purpose in an area, they always cause harm to the native species. They decline and causes extinction of the indigenous species that are growing in that area. तो कहते हैं कि पहले ही उस जगह पे उस नेटिव प्लेस पे कोई ना कोई वहां पे इंडिजीनियस स्पीशीज ग्रो कर रही होती है, पर जब कोई एलियन स्पीशीज उस एरिया को ऑक्यूपाई करती हैं, उस एरिया में इंट्रोड्यूस होती हैं, तो दे ऑलवेज कॉज अ थ्रेट टू दैट इंडिजीनियस स्पीशीज. So here you can give the example of Nile perch. ठीक है, Nile perch it is introduced in Lake Victoria in the East Africa, and what this species do, it causes the extinction of some of the 200 species of the cichlid fish that are the indigenous species of that lake. ठीक है, तो इस तरह से वो कहते हैं कि ये नाइल पर्च जो थी वो क्या थी, यहाँ पर एक एलियन स्पीशीज थी, जब उसको लेक के अंदर इंट्रोड्यूस किया गया तो वहां पे उसके आने की वजह से जो सिक्लेट स्पीशीज थी उनकी 200 स्पीशीज जो है उनका लॉस हो गया. उसी तरह से देयर आर सो मेनी एलियन स्पीशीज दैट आर एंटर्स इन अवर नेटिव हैबिटेट्स, and these are known as invasive weed species such as carrot grass जिसको हम Parthenium indicum कहते हैं, ठीक है, lantana, and water hyacinth which is known as Iconia crapsix. All of these are the invasive weed species or the alien species. And one another example he has discussed here is the African catfish. African catfish which is known as Clarius garipinus. Okay, this fish when it introduced in the aquaculture purpose, then what it do, it causes a threat for the indigenous catfishes that are found in the rivers of the country. Okay, but you have to give the examples of these alien species and how they cause threat to the indigenous species. And the fourth point is co-extinction. As the name itself indicates, so what he said, when a species it become extinct, then it is not only the extinction of that particular species, but the species of plants and animals that are also associated with that species which become extinct, or they are related with them in an obligatory way, they also become extinct. ठीक है, फॉर एग्जाम्पल कहते हैं कि अगर कोई होस्ट फिश है और वो होस्ट फिश की स्पीशीज जो है उसकी ओवर हार्वेस्टिंग की वजह से एक्सटिंक्ट हो जाती है, तो सिर्फ वो होस्ट स्पीशीज जो है वही एक्सटिंक्ट नहीं होती, उसके ऊपर डिपेंडेंट और भी बहुत सारे स्पीशीज, इट मे बी द assemblage of the parasites or you can say some other species which are dependent on that species, they also become extinct. ठीक है, one of the another example that you can give here is the plant pollinator mutualism. There is a mutual association between plants and their pollinators. ठीक है, these pollinators may be the insects of various varieties such as bees, bumblebees, beetles. ठीक है, तो अगर वो कहते हैं कि ये सारे जो पर्टिकुलर इंसेक्ट्स हैं जो कि पॉलिनेटर्स हैं प्लांट के, अगर पर्टिकुलर प्लांट की स्पीशीज जो हैं या फिर उनके पॉलिनेटर जो हैं उनकी स्पीशीज एक्सटिंक्ट हो जाएंगी, तो उसका डायरेक्ट इफेक्ट जो है उस पर्टिकुलर प्लांट पर भी पड़ेगा. ठीक, तो इस तरह से ऐसे स्पीशीज एक दूसरे के साथ ऑब्लिगेटरी रिलेशनशिप रखती हैं, वो साथ साथ ही एक्सटिंक्ट भी हो जाती है. ओके बेटा, दिस इज क्लियर टू ऑल ऑफ यू? Yes, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now I am starting the today's topic and that is biodiversity conservation. ठीक है, what he said, why there is a need to conserve biodiversity. ठीक है, in the whole chapter we are saying again and again that we should have to conserve biodiversity. We should have to preserve the species of plants and animals. ठीक है, तो अब वो कहते हैं कि why there is a need to conserve biodiversity. तो here he has discussed many reasons. कहते हैं कि sometimes to conserve biodiversity is an obvious reason for us. ठीक है, we have certain demands which get fulfilled by these species. So because of that reason, we thought that we have to conserve biodiversity. But sometimes there may not be certain specific reason behind that, but we do not want to stay on Earth planet alone. So in order to that, we also want to conserve the other species which are also enjoying the planet Earth along with us. So there are some reasons which may be the obvious reason, and there may be some other reasons which are not the obvious one, but they are also the specific type of reason. So here he has grouped three categories on the basis of which we have to conserve biodiversity. So first is the narrow utilitarian arguments. So what he said that we as a human have to conserve biodiversity because it is obvious for us. We human beings are deriving countless benefits from the nature and the natural species. ठीक है, हम ह्यूमंस जो है वो नेचर से बहुत सारी हमारी जो डिमांड्स हैं वो नेचर से सेटिस्फाई होती हैं. We are dependent on nature for obtaining various things. These may be some of the food items such as cereals, pulses, firewoods, fruits. ठीक बेटे, तो सीरियल्स, पल्सेस, फ्रूट्स, इसके अलावा हमें फायरवुड मिलता है नेचर से. We obtain different type of fibers for our clothing. If we want to construct houses, we require construction material in the form of wood, and that we obtained from trees. Okay, beside this, we are also having so many things which we obtain from forest, such as tannins, lubricants, dyes, resins, perfumes. So all of these, they are the important part of the industrial product. And sometimes we also have satisfying our demand in the form of medicines from nature. Okay, there are so many plants which yield us medicines. So because of all of these demands, as they are satisfied by nature, it is our primary duty that we have to conserve biodiversity if we want to fulfill our demands. Take what he has written, that 25% of the drugs which are sold in the market, they are actually the plant product. They are obtained from plant, and 25,000 species of the plants, they are contributing in the traditional system of medicines that are used as a native, that are used by our native people and throughout the world. ठीक है, तो beside this, what he said, that there are so many plants which are still lying in our forest and we have not discovered them, we have not named them, and these plants may be of medicinal importance. So many species they are present in our tropical rainforest which would have to be explored, and some of these species may also have medicinal importance. ठीक बेटे, उसके बाद उसने आपको ये बताया कि हर एक स्पीशीज जो है ना उसका आपको कोई ना कोई इकोनॉमिक इम्पोर्टेंस है, तो इसीलिए अपनी इस ग्रीड की वजह से, अपनी इन डिमांड्स को सेटिस्फाई करने की वजह से हमें बायोडाइवर्सिटी जो है उसको कंजर्व करना ही होगा, अदरवाइज आवर डिमांड्स कैन नॉट बी सेटिस्फाइड. Okay, and second one is what is the broad view or broad utilitarian argument because of which we have to preserve, or you can say conserve, the biodiversity. So here he said that ecosystem, it provides various things in the form of ecosystem service to us. Okay, so many things that are provided by nature to us, but nature is not taking any kind of fee for these free services. ठीक बेटे, तो उसमें उसने आपको बताया कि we are giving the example of Amazon rainforest. Then these Amazon rainforest, they are estimated to produce 20% of the total oxygen in the earth atmosphere by the process of photosynthesis. ठीक है, अकेले Amazon rainforest जो है वो photosynthesis के जरिए 20% total oxygen जो अर्थ की surface पे present है वो देते हैं. But nature is not demanding any kind of fee for these free services. तो अगर वो कहते हैं कि इसको हम कंपेयर करें एक हॉस्पिटल के साथ, तो एक हॉस्पिटल में एक ऑक्सीजन सिलेंडर जो है उसकी प्राइस कितना ज्यादा हो सकता है, पर हमें नेचर जो है वो फ्री में 20% से भी ज्यादा ऑक्सीजन प्रोवाइड करता है. तो ये सारी चीजें जो फ्री सर्विस हमें नेचर देता है, ठीक है, जिसपे कोई फीस जो है वो नहीं है, इन चीजों को ध्यान में रखते हुए वी हैव टू कंजर्व द बायोडाइवर्सिटी. ठीक है, सेकंड थिंग व्हाट ही हैज डिस्कस्ड हियर इज दैट पॉलिनेशन which is a vital process for the fertilization in plants. ठीक है, it only happens because of certain species of animals, insect species which are known as pollinators, and from these plants we obtained our food. इन plants से हमें food मिलता है. ठीक है, इन plants में fruits लगते हैं, seeds बनते हैं, and these seeds and fruits they are the edible ones, and इसके help से जो है हम survive करते हैं. तो कहते हैं कि हमें जो है एनिमल्स और प्लांट की स्पीशीज जो है उनको इसलिए प्रिजर्व करना है, कंजर्व करना है, ताकि हमें जो भी फूड हमें प्लांट से मिलता है एज अ हेटेरोट्रॉप हम लेते हैं, वो फूड हमेशा बना रहे. तो सिर्फ हम प्लांट के स्पीशीज को ही कंजर्व नहीं करेंगे, वी ऑल्सो हैव टू कंजर्व द स्पीशीज ऑफ पॉलिनेटर्स. ठीक है, बिकॉज दीज पॉलिनेटर्स दे आर प्लेइंग अ सिग्निफिकेंट रोल इन द प्रोसेस ऑफ पॉलिनेशन, and because of this pollination fertilization takes place in plant, and seeds and fruits they are formed. Okay beta, and the third thing is कहते हैं कि if we are living with so many species in nature, then these natural species they create an aesthetic sense in us. ठीक है, we feel very happy when we see numerous species of plants and animals. For example, sometime for our enjoyment we used to walk through thick woods. ठीक है, हम जंगल्स में जाते हैं, हम वहां पे वॉक करते हैं, इतनी सारी स्पीशीज प्लांट्स और एनिमल्स की देखकर हम हैप्पी फील करते हैं. इसके अलावा इन द स्प्रिंग सीजन व्हेन सो मेनी फ्लावर्स दे ब्लूम, देन यू फील अ सेंस ऑफ हैप्पीनेस इन योरसेल्फ. And sometimes when you wake up in the morning, you listen the birds songs, bulbul songs, ठीक, and they also create a kind of happiness, a kind of joyful moments for you. And if you are not preserving these species, then all of these aesthetic things they keep on losing. ठीक है, and you are feeling alone. तो इसलिए वो कहते हैं कि हमें जो है इन सभी कारणों की वजह से बायोडाइवर्सिटी जो है उसको प्रिजर्व करना चाहिए. एंड थर्ड थिंग इज एथिकल आर्गुमेंट. ठीक है, एंड एथिकल आर्गुमेंट में उसने ये कहा है कि वी आर नॉट ओनली द सिंगल स्पीशीज who has the right to live on this planet Earth. There are so many species who also emerge along with us, and these may be the species of plants, animals, microbe species. And if we have the right to live on the planet Earth, then this means all of these species, plants, animals and microbes, they also have the right to live on the Earth. So who are we who make conditions critical for their survival? We must have to realize that every species has an intrinsic value. ठीक है, हर एक स्पीशीज जो है उसका एक इंट्रिंसिक वैल्यू है, उसका सर्वाइवल भी उतना ही इंपॉर्टेंट है जितना कि हमारा इंपॉर्टेंट है. डजंट मैटर whether that species is have any economic value for us or not. We are no one to cause harm to these species. So it is our moral duty that we should care these species, we should care for their well-being. ठीक है, and we have this moral duty that we are supposed to pass our biological legacy to our future generations in good order also. ऐसा ना हो कि हम इतने सारे स्पीशीज के साथ इस टाइम पे रह रहे हैं पर हमारी फ्यूचर जनरेशंस जो है उनके टाइम पे कोई भी स्पीशीज ना हो. तो ये हमारी मॉरल रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज है कि हमें अर्थ जो है, ग्रीन अर्थ जो है, उसको इसी फॉर्म में हमारी फ्यूचर जनरेशंस जो है हमको हैंड ओवर करना है. ठीक है, तो इसलिए वो कहते हैं कि अगर हमारा रहना जो है अर्थ के ऊपर जरूरी है तो सभी स्पीशीज का रहना भी उतना ही जरूरी है और हम उन्हें हार्म ना पहुंचाएं और हमेशा जो है अपनी बायोडाइवर्सिटी जो है बनाए रखें. ओके बेटे, तो अगर आपसे पूछा जाता है कि व्हाई देयर इज अ नीड फॉर कंजर्वेशन ऑफ बायोडाइवर्सिटी, देन दीस 3 हेडिंग्स यू हैव टू कंसीडर एंड यू आल्सो कैन गिव एग्जांपल्स एट योर ओन. ठीक है, जरूरी नहीं है आपने बुक वाले एग्जांपल ही मेंशन करने हैं, आपको कोई भी एग्जांपल इससे रिलेटेड मिलते हैं आप इसमें लिख देंगे, ये एक नोट की फॉर्म में क्वेश्चन आ सकता है हमें. अब देखिए, हाउ डू वी कंजर्व बायोडाइवर्सिटी. नाउ द क्वेश्चन इज that we are saying we have to conserve biodiversity because of some narrow views, broad views or ethical views. But the thing is कि किस तरह से biodiversity जो आपको conserve किया जाए. तो कहते हैं कि there are 2 methods by which you can conserve biodiversity. ठीक है, एक मेथड उसने बहुत ही सिंपल सा बताया. वो कहते हैं कि if you want to protect a tiger, then you have to protect the forest and the tigers are protected as it is. ठीक है, अगर आपकी टाइगर की स्पीशीज जो है वो इंडेंजर्ड स्पीशीज बन गई है, आप उन्हें बचाना चाहते हैं, तो अगर आप पूरा फॉरेस्ट ही बचा लोगे तो टाइगर की जो स्पीशीज है वो अपने आप ही प्रोटेक्ट हो जाएंगी, प्रिजर्व हो जाएंगी. ठीक है, तो अगर वो कहते हैं कि if you want to save an endangered species or to protect an endangered species, you have to protect the entire habitat of that species. So in this way you are not only protecting the particular species but the rest of the species that are also living along with it. So this type of conservation, it is known as in situ conservation. ठीक है बेटे, in situ का मतलब है कि हमने कोई भी एनिमल जो है ना उसको उसके हैबिटेट से अलग नहीं किया, हमने उसका हैबिटेट जो है उसी को बचा लिया. तो अगर आपने उसका हैबिटेट बचा लिया है तो स्पीशीज ऑटोमेटिकली ही कंजर्व हो जाएगी. ठीक बेटे, but second approach that we can apply for the conservation of biodiversity is ex situ conservation. ठीक है, ex situ conservation जो है वो क्या कहता है, ex situ conservation जो है वो ये कहती है कि sometimes there is an urgent need to protect a particular species who are facing a threat of their extinction within a few days or few months. ठीक है, कई बार एक इतनी ज्यादा अर्जेंट नीड होती है कि हमने एक पर्टिकुलर स्पीशीज को बताना है क्योंकि उस स्पीशीज के सिर्फ 1 या 2 ही मेंबर रह गए हैं और कुछ दिनों में, इवन कुछ मंथ के अंदर भी वो एक्सटिंक्ट हो सकती है. They are severely facing the threat of extinction. In that species, saving the entire forest or protecting the entire habitat is not a correct decision. ठीक है, उस केस में हम अगर पूरे हैबिटेट को कंजर्व करने की कोशिश करेंगे या पूरे फॉरेस्ट को कंजर्व करने की कोशिश करेंगे तो बहुत देर हो जाएगी और हम उस स्पीशीज जो है उसका सुपरविजन अच्छे तरीके से नहीं कर पाएंगे. ठीक है, मेडिकल हेल्प इज रिक्वायर्ड बाय दैट स्पीशीज. तो हम क्या करते हैं, उस स्पीशीज को उसके नेचुरल हैबिटेट में से निकाल लेते हैं और उसके नेचुरल हैबिटेट्स में से निकालकर हम उसे जो ह्यूमन सुपरविजन में एक प्रोटेक्टेड एनवायरनमेंट के अंदर रखते हैं. अगर प्लांट स्पीशीज है तो हम उन्हें बोटेनिकल गार्डन्स में रखते हैं, अगर एनिमल स्पीशीज है हम उनको जूलॉजिकल पार्क्स में रखते हैं, वाइल्ड लाइफ सफारीज में रखते हैं. ठीक है, तो ये अप्रोच जो है जिसमें हम एनिमल को उसके नेचुरल हैबिटेट में से निकाल लेते हैं और उसको एक प्रोटेक्टेड एनवायरनमेंट में अंडर सुप्रीम जो है ह्यूमन सुपरविजन में रखते हैं, उसको मेडिकल हेल्प दी जाती है, उसको फूड दिया जाता है, टाइम टू टाइम उसको चेक किया जाता है, उसकी ब्रीडिंग करवाई जाती है. Such an approach is known as ex situ conservation. So always remember, ex situ conservation means we take the animal from their natural habitat, then we put that animal in some important protected areas and where human supervision is provided to that animal. So now I'm going to take in situ conservation in detail. ठीक बेटे, तो इन situ conservation की approach जो है वो ये कहती है कि we have to conserve the whole biological wealth. So if we protect the whole forest or the biological area, then the animal and plant species they automatically get conserved. But there is a conflict between different nations, developed and developing nations. Okay, what the developed nation said that they have a proper amount of funds for conserving the whole biological area. But this problem is a major problem for the developing nations. They have limited amount of fund and to conserve the whole habitat of the animal. Okay, they demand high funds and they are not able to satisfy this need. तो उस केस में वो कहते हैं कि डेवलपिंग नेशंस जो है उन्होंने ये डिसाइड किया या ओवरऑल जो ग्लोबल डिसीजन लिया गया, ठीक है, बाय द बायोलॉजिस्ट और बाय द इकोलॉजिस्ट, वो ये था कि इट इज नॉट पॉसिबल टू कंजर्व द होल बायोलॉजिकल एरिया और द नंबर ऑफ स्पीशीज दैट आर प्रेजेंट इन द एंटायर हैबिटेट, बट वी कैन कंजर्व सम ऑफ द रीजन ऑफ दैट बायोलॉजिकल एरिया. ठीक है, पूरे के पूरे फॉरेस्ट को तो नहीं बचाया जा सकता या एक बड़ी बायोलॉजिकल लैंड को तो नहीं बचाया जा सकता. तो क्या चीज बेटर है कि हम उस एरिया को सिलेक्ट कर लें जहाँ पे बायोडाइवर्सिटी जो है वो रिच है. सच एरियाज देयर आर thousands of species of plants and animals. That area which is rich in biodiversity, by the ecologists that area is considered as the biodiversity hotspots. तो उन्होंने कहा कि biodiversity hotspots they are actually those areas which have high level of species richness. And what is the special thing that not only they carry high level of species richness, but the endemic species they are also found in these areas. Okay, but what are endemic species? Endemic species are those species which are the unique species of a particular area. ऐसी species जो सिर्फ एक particular area के अंदर ही present होती है and they are not found anywhere else. These species are known as the endemic species. So what the biologists and what the ecologists they have decided that it is not possible to protect the entire biological wealth, but we have to select some of the important areas. And these areas can be considered as the biological hotspots. So these biological hotspots, they are not only rich in species richness, but they also have endemic species. So in this way, it is an appropriate approach of in situ conservation for the species. So what they have done, initially 25 biodiversity hotspots, they were identified by the scientists, and later there is some revised addition to these areas. Initially it was 25 biodiversity hotspots and later the red data list it shows that these number it raises to 34. Now there are 34 biodiversity hotspots in the world. Okay, but what is the special thing about these biodiversity hotspots? These biodiversity hotspots are also the reason of high biodiversity loss. That in these reasons there is an accelerated habitat loss also. That humans they are interfering in these areas, they are doing harm to the habitat of the species, they are converting the larger habitats into smaller territories. So in India, 3 of these biodiversity hotspots, they are the Western Ghats and Sri Lanka and Indo-Burma and Himalayan regions, which are exceptionally have many species of the plants and animals. Okay, but these biodiversity hotspots, they are not covering a very large number of area, but less than 2% of the earth land area it is covered by these areas. So they are collectively have larger number of species. So it is better that we have to protect these biodiversity hotspots. So if we protect these biodiversity hotspots, we are able to, you can say, stop the ongoing mass extinction by how much percent? Almost 30%. तो 30% तक हम species जो है उनका जो loss है, उनका जो mass extinction है, उसको हम रोक सकते हैं. ठीक है, तो for this purpose the Indian government they also took initiatives and they have constructed so many ecologically unique and biologically rich regions in our country in the form of biosphere reserves, national parks and sanctuaries. So in India, these are the older data. Now this data is changed. So 14 biosphere reserves are earlier found in our country, 90 national parks are there, and 448 wildlife sanctuaries, they are there in our country. They are constructed by the Indian government and under his supervision. ठीक है, the plant and the animal species, they are conserved in this biosphere reserves, national parks and wildlife sanctuaries. ठीक बेटे, इसके अलावा वो कहते हैं कि इंडिया इज अ कंट्री एंड हियर द पीपल्स दे हैव much stronger religious beliefs. So in our religions, in our culture, okay, so many things they are written in our Vedas related with the conservation of the species. Okay, there are so many things mentioned about the sacred trees and the animals, wild animals. They are considered as the sacred animals for certain communities, tribal communities which are living in our country. So in this way, okay, there are certain reasons that are present in a forest area. ठीक है, दे आर कंसीडर्ड एज सैक्रेड ग्रोव्स. तो कहते हैं कि इंडिया के अंदर जो है कुछ ट्राइबल कम्युनिटीज जो है, जो फॉरेस्ट के अंदर पिछले थाउजेंड्स ऑफ ईयर से रह रही हैं, उन्होंने क्या किया है, उन फॉरेस्ट के अंदर कुछ रिलीजियस प्लेसेस बना दिए हुए हैं, मंदिर बना दिए हैं, और उन्होंने कहा है कि टेम्पल के आसपास वाला जो एरिया है वहां पे जितने भी प्लांट्स हैं, जितने भी एनिमल की स्पीशीज हैं, उनको प्रोटेक्ट करना जो है वो हमारी ड्यूटी है. ठीक है, तो इट इज मेंशन्ड इन आवर रिलीजन दैट वी शुड नॉट कट ट्रीज, वी शुड नॉट डू एनी हार्म or any violence to these animals. So such type of sacred groves, they are also those areas जहाँ पे बहुत ज्यादा नंबर में biodiversity present है. So in India, such many sacred groves they are found in Khasi and Jaintia hills in Meghalaya, Aravalli hills of the Rajasthan and Western Ghats of Karnataka and Maharashtra, and Sarguja, Chanda and Bastar areas of the Madhya Pradesh. So all of these sacred groves are actually the piece of the land where numerous species of plants and animals are found, and they are the biodiversity rich regions. And because of these sacred groves, so many species of plants and animals they get protected. Okay, बेटे. Next जो है that is ex situ conservation. As I have already discussed, ex situ conservation, what we do, those animals which are facing the threat of their extinction, whether they may be the plant or animal species, they are taken out from their natural habitats and they are placed in special settings in some protected areas, and special care is provided to those animals. ठीक है, तो जहां पे उनको रखा जाता है प्रोटेक्टेड एरियाज में, जहां पे उन्हें सीवियर सुपरविजन में रखा जाता है, दीज एरियाज में भी zoological parks जिन्हें हम zoos के नेम से जानते हैं, botanical gardens, और these may be the wildlife safaris. So here the humans, they are not allowed to enter. They only watch the animals. They can only see the plant species but cannot do any harm to these species. As these animals and plants, they are facing the threat of extinction. So they are under human supervision. Their caring is done by the humans. ठीक है, तो रिसेंट ईयर्स के अंदर ex situ कंजर्वेशन जो है उसको काफी ज्यादा एडवांस किया गया है. यहाँ पे सिर्फ प्लांट और एनिमल की स्पीशीज ही नहीं लाई जाती, आजकल जो है there is another technique which is known as cryopreservation, and here in this technique those species which are the threatened species, ठीक है, they can be preserved in a viable and fertile condition for long period by using the cryopreservation technique. Here we use liquid nitrogen at -196 degrees Celsius and the sperms of animals and the pollens of the plants, they are preserved for many years by these species. ठीक है, सिर्फ पोलन को ही प्रोटेक्ट नहीं करते हैं, एग्स जो है उनको भी लंबे समय के लिए इन विट्रो कंडीशंस में रखा जा सकता है, और डिफरेंट जेनेटिक स्ट्रेन्स जो है कमर्शियली इंपॉर्टेंट प्लांट्स की, उनके सीड्स जो है उनको भी सीड बैंक्स के अंदर रखा गया है. तो लास्ट में व्हाट ही इज कंक्लूडेड फ्रॉम दिस चैप्टर दैट बायोडाइवर्सिटी डू नॉट नो एनी पॉलिटिकल बाउंड्रीज एंड इट इज नॉट रिलेटेड विद वन इंडिविजुअल और वन कंट्री. Biodiversity and its conservation is the collective responsibility of all the nations because it is an international issue which we all have to consider. So for this, the historic convention on biodiversity, the Earth Summit, it is held in Rio de Janeiro in 1992, and here all the nations are called and they take oath for appropriate measures for the conservation of biodiversity and sustainable utilization of its benefits. And after this, a follow-up World Summit on Sustainable Development in 2002, it was held in Johannesburg, South Africa. 190 countries, they pledged their commitment to achieve by 2010 a significant reduction in the current rate of biodiversity loss at global, regional and at local levels. ठीक है, उन्होंने कहा कि हम सिर्फ ग्लोबल लेवल पे ही स्पीशीज को प्रोटेक्ट नहीं करेंगे, अपने रीजनल लेवल से हमें ये ड्यूटी स्टार्ट करनी होगी और लोकल लेवल से ड्यूटी जो है उसको शुरू किया जाएगा। तो इस तरह से हम बायोडाइवर्सिटी जो है उसका जो एक्सटेंशन है बहुत बड़े लेवल पे उसको हम रोक सकते हैं। ठीक है बेटे, दिस कंप्लीट्स योर चैप्टर एंड आफ्टर दैट वी विल डिस्कस द क्वेश्चन आंसर एंड आफ्टर डिस्कसिंग द क्वेश्चन आंसर वी विल स्टार्ट विद द सैंपल पेपर्स। ओके, तो अब इसको चैप्टर को आज ही रीड कर लेंगे सभी बच्चे, सिर्फ एक या दो बार रीडिंग लेने से ही यू आर एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड द चैप्टर। इफ स्टिल यू हैव एनी डाउट्स यू कैन सेंड मी योर क्वेश्चंस। आफ्टर दिस चैप्टर आई विल टेक द क्वेश्चंस फ्रॉम द सैंपल पेपर चैप्टर वाइज। ऑलराइट बेटे, ओके, तो थिंक ओवर इट। इफ यू स्टिल फेस एनी क्वेश्चन which comes in your mind, you can send me on my WhatsApp number.